Check two, sound check. I always wanted to have a garage band. Sound check. A little DJ in there. I was a throaty voice game show announcer in my previous lifetime. Okay. Everybody wants to get a seat. We will continue with the conference on our next presentation here in Maple 2. If you are not supposed to be in Maple 2, find where you need to go. Today's presentation is Prevailing Wage and Responsible Bidding. This is really important for people in our community. If you haven't been involved in construction and dealing with contractors and everything, this is really, really relevant. Let me get my spectacles here. Today's presenter is James Kunz. James has worked for the Foundation for Fair Contracting for 9 years, and he has spent 16 years in the industry. And with that, we will welcome James. Take it away.
Thank you, Andy, and thanks everybody for coming to my presentation. Always glad to have more than one person watching, so this is fantastic. Like Andy said, my name's Jim Kunz, James Kunz, Jimmy Kunz, depends upon how familiar you and I are. And I am the executive director for the Pennsylvania Foundation for Fair Contracting, which is an organization, it's a 501c5 labor organization started in 2016 to really monitor and investigate and inform, as you can see at the top right, concerning prevailing wage, responsible bidding, fair contracting in the public construction market. We know for decades now that the construction industry is a bit wild. It's a bit corrupt at times. And this organization sort of formed with the preliminary goal to help workers recover their money when they weren't being paid properly, which we've done to the tune of around $25 million over the last 9 years. But also to come and inform groups that have to interact with prevailing wage and public contracting on how to do it right and how to not get trapped, and also how to create an atmosphere where not only is the work getting done and you're getting a good product, but the workers that we're asking to do it are being treated fairly and getting what they're due as well. Couple caveats. I am not a lawyer. I pay a lawyer. He's a really nice guy. Give him a lot of good work. So anything I say is not legal advice. And even if I was a lawyer, which thankfully I don't have that student loan debt, I'm not your lawyer. And if you don't have a lawyer or you're not regularly engaged with somebody in the legal field as an organization, should maybe employ one or build that relationship. And you should always run anything by them just to make sure that the specifics of you and what you're doing, are covered. The second is there are dozens of ways to get money, whether it's the BIL and the IIJA funding, or through state grants, or other federal grants like they were discussing in the fireside chat. If the mine is newer than 1977, you can't get abandoned mine money. So what I'm going to cover is kind of broad and a bit simplistic, because in those dozens of ways to get money, there's hundreds of requirements in those long grants, and I can't cover them all. But what I'll cover is the broad strokes. And then at the end, we'll talk about how you get more information. So what I'm going to talk about today is requirements and recommendations. You're often going to be required to make sure that the contractor you employ pays the prevailing wage. And with that comes very well-defined rules and resources on how to do it. And I'll help you navigate those and understand them. But I'm also going to recommend that you as an organization create some responsible bidding practices so that when you end up hiring that contractor, you have a good sense that they're going to not only get the job done, but they'll respect the environment when they do it. they'll respect safety when they do it, they'll pay their workers. And that's an optional thing. You don't have to do it, but I hope as much as you care for the watersheds and other areas that you're working on, you also care about the people that you're asking to do that work. This is a very flexible thing, and you have great power beyond, a city or township who have a bunch of rules that don't allow them to be as flexible in the procurement process. So we're going to cover prevailing wage first, the requirements, and then we'll cover responsible bidding at the end. So prevailing wage, what is it? When does it apply? What's the difference between the Davis-Bacon Act and the Pennsylvania Prevailing Wage Act? What are wage determinations? Who do I even ask for more information? These are the questions I often hear when I work with different organizations. This is the most common topics they want to talk about, and so that's what we're going to cover here. So what is prevailing wage? This is a very technical detail or technical description. Basically, what prevailing wage is the state or federal government looks at an area, which we've decided over the course of the near 90 plus years of prevailing wage history that's the county. We like counties. It's an easy way to think about, space in a state. And they're going to look and survey and go through a process to identify what is the most common rate paid to an individual doing a specific trade. And then they'll set those rates. They'll do periodic surveys. They'll update them. There'll be litigation, et cetera, et cetera. But those will be the set rates, and they reflect what the local construction market in that area pays in general, the prevailing rate. And then they'll divide it up into 4 construction types: residential, anything that has people in it, living under 4 stories, building, residential buildings bigger than 4 stories, and then every other type of sort of normal building. Highway, let's see, roads, bridges, bike lanes, that'll kind of fall in there. Maybe bike trails, I don't know, probably not. And then heavy is like the catch-all. It's all the industrial work and basically anything that doesn't fit neatly into a category. And so when you get a wage determination or you see a wage determination, it's going to say one or a combination of those things. And all it's doing is that somebody who looked at that wage determination and looked at your project to help you with that wage determination said, it just fits in this category of construction. Because we tend to pay similar amounts to employees in those different categories, but not always the same. Just the history of the way wages have come up and moved around throughout the years. So when does it apply? These are the rules. The Davis-Bacon Prevailing Wage Act and the Davis-Bacon related acts, which are any law we pass that says also you pay Davis-Bacon prevailing wage. So the bipartisan infrastructure law, the IIJA, whatever initials we want to use for it on any given day, said for the abandoned mine land reclamation money that we're going to give to the state of Pennsylvania, we are going to require that the prevailing wages under the Davis-Bacon Act are paid. And the rule is if you do construction that costs more than $2,000, it has prevailing wage. Pretty easy. It's basically all of it. 1939 is when we came up with that number. So we're 32. So inflation, but whatever. I like it. I like the number that low. For the Pennsylvania Prevailing Wage Act, it's similar. It just says if there's Pennsylvania public dollars and it gets spent on construction, it's covered under the Pennsylvania Prevailing Wage Act. And the project has to be estimated to be over $25,000. So if your engineer estimate comes in $26,000 and you get somebody cut you a really good deal and it's $20,000, they still have to pay prevailing wage. So, don't do that. You're not going to say, like some guy coming and telling you like, hey, I can get you under prevailing wage. Doesn't work. But also you can't purposely break up a project that should all work together. Like, I'm just going to suddenly do the sidewalk as a completely separate project because I know I can get that done for $10,000. If it makes sense that it's part of the project, you got to keep it as a whole. So just things to think about as you're planning your projects and the scope of work that you want to do. A caveat is that if the Davis-Bacon Act applies, the PA Prevailing Wage Act does not apply. Does not matter if you get $10 million in Pennsylvania money and $4,000 of federal money. It's just the way the law was written. It is what it is until I fix it. Davis-Bacon Act applies. So are there any differences? Not really. Prevailing Wage Acts, the Pennsylvania Act passed in the 60s was based off of the federal act. It just became what we like to refer to as Little Davis-Bacon, which every state has Little Davis-Bacon Acts. In Pennsylvania, when you get a wage determination, it'll actually like project out a number of years based off of the data that they have for what the wages are expected to be. The Davis-Bacon Act will give you one wage that just goes on forever from the start of the project. They do use different, they're called certified payroll forms, which is what the contractor has to fill out. But they're very similar, and likely the Pennsylvania form will end up looking very much like the newly redesigned federal form, which has a lot of information so that oversight can be provided. And then obviously who you got to call if things seem to be going weird or bad to enforce it. Pennsylvania Labor and Industry, the Bureau of Labor Law Compliance, BLLC, is who handles problems with Pennsylvania prevailing wage. If you just search PA prevailing wage, it'll come up. Google's a powerful tool. And then for the U.S. Department of Labor, for federal prevailing wage, it's going to be the U.S. Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division. Those are the two subdivisions of the departments of labor that handle it. If you just start at the logical place, or even if you just go to who gave you the money, they'll know who can help enforce it. And that's if you get to a problem that you can't work out with the contractor. So you get some money and it says, all right, thank you, here's your money for your project, here's your grant, here's all these other requirements that you have to deal with. Also, you have to tell your contractors that they have to pay prevailing wage, and you have to get a wage determination. Sounds very complicated. It's very simple, in fact. It's actually better if it's Pennsylvania. It's even simpler. But you just go to one of these websites. On the left is sam.gov. Uncle Sam built a website, which is the repository of, they say all information. It's not, but it's close. And right on the front page, it says wage determinations, right in the middle of the page. Click on that, click on your state, Pennsylvania, unless you're visiting. Click on your county, and then click on the wage determination for the type of construction it should be. Most likely, for everybody in here, heavy construction. PA does it a little more, or does it differently, where a wage determination is given for each individual project. So you go to that link, or you just search Pennsylvania prevailing wage, and right on the front page will be a thing that says wage determinations. Click on it, and it'll have you fill out a form. And all it's doing is saying, what county are you doing the project in? Who are you? What is the project, a short description, and when is it expected to bid out? And then a person in that office reviews that and then attaches a wage determination for it. And it'll say, we believe that this project is a heavy project, and it'll have the heavy wage determinations. It's a pretty simple process. I would recommend before you need it, just poke around on those websites, especially the federal website. Not the best group to design websites I think we've all encountered, so I think we all remember the Affordable Health Care Act rollout. But just go there, poke around, see what the document looks like. And that way, when you do need it, you're ready. Now, a rule about wage determinations. They need to be fresh, as it were. So both state and federal government says the rule is you need to get the wage determination within 90 days of the bid date. This keeps it fresh, it's accurate, because these wage determinations are changing constantly. If the wages are attached to a collective bargaining agreement and go up with that collective bargaining agreement, the sheet metal workers' wages might go up in June and the operating engineers might go up in July. And so that's a new wage determination. They may have to go solve a problem for something they never had a wage determination for, like a new piece of equipment or whatever. That's a new one. Every year, the federal wage determination for Allegheny County goes through about 14 revisions. So you just need to get it within that 90 days. And as long as you got it, that's your wage determination. Now, if you don't get bids that you like, you decide to delay the project, just get a new wage determination the next time you bid it. It just needs to be fresh. If it isn't fresh, the construction firms actually have the ability to appeal, and it'll slow you down. You won't be able to start because they want to have the most accurate information as they're bidding against each other. So wage determinations, easy. Something to know about wage determinations is that they'll list the jobs, right? We basically have about 15 categories of what the trades are that are set by the Secretary of Labor, both state and federal. And those aren't likely to change. You may not even know exactly what a sheet metal worker does, or as we refer to them in the trades, a tin knocker, because they started actually in coal mines and building tin structures. Or actually in the railroad industry, sorry. But it'll give you a guide, and then that's the conversation you have with the contractor. They will say, okay, I need 4 heavy equipment operators. That's a pretty easy one. We know what they all do. They drive the big yellow things that make the big holes in the ground. But they might say, oh, we need an electrician to do this specific job. It's on the contractor to determine those things, and then you kind of double check, right? And if you have questions, both the Department of Labor and Labor and Industry will answer them. You call them up and say, hey, I have a worker it's doing this, this, and this. They're paying him like this. Is that right? And they'll say, yeah. Or they'll say, ooh, no. And then the fun begins. Couple useful links. Both of these websites, starting with the PA Prevailing Wage website, they just redid the Pennsylvania websites. I'm sure if you've been on the Department of Environmental Protection, it looks completely different, broke all of your bookmarks, fun times. But they really did a great job at the Prevailing Wage website. It has lots of resources. There's an entire frequently asked questions section. It's probably the best way to get answers, and those answers will essentially apply to the Davis-Bacon Act. There might be some tiny legal caveats. Again, check with your lawyer, but it's a good resource. The Davis-Bacon Act has a website that just tells you what the law is, but they have begun to add, at least if they're still up, I check every day on the state of federal websites, a lot of the same things, little pamphlets on what are your responsibilities, how do you get a wage determination, 2 or 3 page things that you can print out, keep for yourself, that'll walk you through these processes. The resource book, if you want to really nerd out, you're feeling like you need a good read to help you get to sleep at night, you can download the Prevailing Wage Resource Handbook, and it has, it's going to answer questions about how many hours does somebody who is fixing a piece of equipment needs to work on a job to qualify for prevailing wage, stuff you never need to worry about. But, if you're interested, it's there. It also will answer some general questions, but it can get into the weeds. And then again, another link to wage determinations. Just trying to make sure you got a place to go. Your responsibility for prevailing wage is pretty simple. You need to tell the contractor they have to pay for it. You got to supply them with a wage determination. And then you need to collect certified payrolls from them on a weekly basis in which they write down how many hours does a individual work, what job, and how much they get paid. And then that you're covered. You have met your requirements. I would suggest looking at those wage determinations. I would ask you to go talk to the workers and make sure that what's on that paper and what they get in their pocket is the same, because I see the seedy underbelly of the construction industry every day. And let's just say it happens by accident all the time. But the best oversight, right? The classic rules like sunshine is the best disinfectant, right? You actively participating is the best disinfectant. And I'll give you one last thing, and this is the big one that you got to run by your attorney. This is the big one you got to figure out what your stress and tolerance level is that under both the Prevailing Wage Act of Pennsylvania and the Davis-Bacon Act, you can stop paying a contractor if you do not think they're compliant. You have the authority under the act to do stop payment. And being in the construction industry for 16 years, being a fifth generation member of the construction industry, let me tell you, if you want to get a construction firm to do anything, don't pay them, because they will figure out how to make it right. Suddenly they will have all of the things they need to do to meet what you want, because that industry is on thin margins, and the job that you're paying them for today is like paying for the materials for them to finish the last job oftentimes. You have that authority. You could get sued. I mean, you can get sued for following the law. That happens. I have insurance for when I inevitably get sued. So you need to know if your organization is willing to take that risk, because that's going to be the most effective first step. It can really right the wrong right away, but you might not be there. You may not want to have that attorney's fee, which you could probably recover in those lawsuits. And in that case, you just call 1-800 Department of Labor, please come help me, which is not the real phone number, but you can find it online. They will come and stop the job. And they carry a lot more authority, and their attorneys are on staff, so it doesn't really cost them anything. So prevailing wage. I'm going to pause right here before we move into responsible bidding. Any sort of quick questions on prevailing wage?
So that you said the Department of Labor can come and I guess audit and stop a job if it's appropriate. Would the PA Department of Labor people do, say, a Davis-Bacon Act issue, or do you have to get the feds involved for that?
Yeah, unfortunately, if the job for prevailing wage issues is Davis-Bacon, you will have to get, when they return to office, hopefully soon, somebody from the U.S. Department of Labor. If you have an actual issue, they are going to be decently responsive. I mean, they're obviously understaffed right now, underfunded. I was just at another conference, a big conference on prevailing wage, and I was having a conversation with Jessica Lumen, who is the Biden wage and hour administrator. And she was saying that, her conversations with on the ground staff throughout the country is that they're there, you call them, they're going to do the work. It just might take a couple extra days. And what they'll do is if they see that there's a problem where you send them an email and you're like, look, I've communicated this with the company, they don't want to make adjustments, I think this is a violation. What they'll do is order you to stop paying them, essentially. But then it's all on them now at that point, right? Like, it's the U.S. Department of Labor has ordered you to stop paying. What are you going to do? You're just complying with an order from the state or federal government. And then again, man, they'll come to Jesus moment. Suddenly they'll figure it out. I saw one other question. Yeah.
Yeah, so sorry, I'm not
Correct. We refer to them as the owner of the project. The city of Pittsburgh is the owner of a project that they are paying for. Mountain Watershed Association is going to be the owner of their next plant. They are the ones that have to do those three things. And you're right, I didn't put it in. I will add a slide here when I'm done and then resend it, and then it'll get confusing. But we'll get you a slide that says those three things. Three things. Tell the contractor that they have to pay prevailing wage. Give them a wage determination in the bid documents. And then collect the certified payrolls weekly. Now, if it's every other week, no big deal. If it slips to a month, start having a conversation. If they've never turned one in, don't pay them, right? Just like you wouldn't pay them if they can't show you what they did, right? Like you're going to get other documentation for them during those projects. This is just another thing. And contractors, a lot of them are going to claim, oh, it's too onerous, it's whatever. There's actually a nice study about how much time it takes to fill out a certified payroll form, because every time the federal government creates a form, they have to do a study about, what is it effective and does it cost too much? It's a great, if you're that kind of researcher, I guess. It's not that onerous. Most of their payroll systems have a button that you click. It says certified payroll and prints it out. Don't let them buffalo you. Don't let them lie to you, because they will often. Yeah, so the certified payroll form has a line for each employee. They just do as many pages as they need. Everybody that works on the construction project that's not a supervisor. If they pick up a tool, push a wheelbarrow, run a piece of equipment, they got to be included on that list, and they need to be paid the prevailing wage. All right, we'll come back to some more questions on prevailing wage at the end. And then I'll let you know that you can call me anytime. It doesn't cost anybody any money. All right, let's talk about responsible contracting. The recommendation. What is it? Why would you use it? And then how do non-government organizations, apply the standards for where this comes from? You see there to the left, it's deputy attorney generals exiting a courthouse in this county when they got a roadwork firm that's perhaps right across the bridge on the highway. It's the one with the big columns, kind of looks like the Parthenon. They had to pay $20 million in worker retirement back wages directly to the workers. They stole $20 million. This is just an example of the most egregious version. It's the largest construction theft case in the United States history, prosecuted by then Attorney General Josh Shapiro. But they got away with this for a long time. So if you're not doing that much stealing, but you're just skimming a little bit, you're definitely getting away with a long time, even longer. And until somebody really digs in, it doesn't get uncovered, which is, most of my job, figuring those things out. What responsible contracting does is does two things. It sets the rules as to what a responsible contractor who's going to bid on your work has to play under. And by setting those rules, it scares away at least some portion of the worst liars and cheaters. Because if I got to fill out a piece of paper or I have to answer questions that can later be used against me in the court of law, and I know I'm already going to cheat because it's the only way I get business, I am not going to take that job. And we actually see, as we've passed responsible ordinances, both here in Pennsylvania and other places in the country, the quality of contractor goes up. You actually oftentimes get more contractors bidding on your project because they know they're playing on a much more level playing field. If I know that 2/3 of your contractors are the assholes that cheat because they all know each other, they all go to lunch with each other, they mostly hate each other, I'm not going to bid. Why am I going to bid? I'm going to spend my money putting together a bid package for this other company that's just going to cheat and steal and lie their way to winning. like I'm not going to spend the money, because every contractor that bids on your project has spent some money and resources putting together their bid. So responsible contractor ordinance, responsible bidding really came out of how do we allow government agencies to pick or eliminate bidders that are known bad actors. So I put this up here. This is the Bucks County Responsible Contractor Ordinance. It describes their purpose and says, look, there's a need to ensure that all work on public construction and maintenance contracts is performed by responsible, qualified firms that maintain the capacity, expertise, personnel, and other qualifications, to do it in a timely, reliable, and cost-effective manner. And that to do this, we're going to require them to meet pre-established, clearly defined minimum standards related to contractor responsibility. Technical qualifications, competency, experience, this sort of normal stuff, but then also like have you stole money from your workers in the past? Have you violated state EPA laws in the past? Right, like those things that if they're listed down in front of you, you're gonna be like, man, I don't want this person doing work. It's like if you're gonna get somebody to put a new roof on your house and you go and talk to a couple people and they're like, look, yeah, they did my roof, but they had a guy fall off the roof. You probably are gonna say, do I want that? There's other roofers. Maybe I'll go somewhere else. His price is the best, but like, do I want a guy falling off my roof on my conscience? Yes, 5 minutes. Okay, I'm going to speed through. So why use it? The use is we don't define what responsible means anywhere in our laws. We just say you have to take the lowest responsible bidder and then say, good luck. And a county is less likely to throw somebody off a job and say, hey, you're not responsible if it's not defined, because that company, who often has more money than the county, is going to sue them. And you don't want to go to court, you have limited resources. The same is true for you. If you're a private entity, you're an NGO, you have less limits on your procurement process, but like you don't want to put yourself in a position where some contractor sues you claiming some malfeasance because you decided that they don't meet the quality and responsibility that you want. So why not write it down? But also, why not ask the questions in order for you to better learn about who you're getting into a partnership with to do this very important work. So remember, you don't have to follow the Title 62 Procurement Act of Pennsylvania, so it gives you a lot of flexibility. There could be rules in your grant that tells you to do certain things, get 3 or more bidders that you don't know, et cetera. But it's going to be a lot more flexible, and you don't have to accept the lowest bidder, which is a big caveat that public agencies have to deal with, right? If somebody comes in 15% less, and that seems odd, you can say, that seems too odd. I'm going to go with one of the other 3 that have a similar bid because that makes sense, right? Like nobody is that good, right? So on the right-hand side, you'll see this questionnaire I helped develop with Reimagine Appalachia. I'm on their board, and it was for houses of worship who were thinking about doing solar installation. And I took basically the ordinance and I broke it down. This is a sample questionnaire that they give out to the contractors. Fill this out, tell us about yourself. And if a contractor has broken the law or has a bunch of violations, they're going to not fill it out and they're not going to bid on the job. And then you've solved a problem. And then the other, you can go from the questionnaire to a formal attestation, where you get your lawyer to draft it up and you tell them it has to be notarized. That'll scare them. Nobody wants to notarize a lie. Notaries flip. That's what the Attorney General's office told me. Best person to flip on an investigation is the notary. So get people to submit notarized documents and they're less likely to lie for you. And then not only do you want to do it for the prime contractor, but often contractors will have to bring in specialty contractors. Make sure that they, in your requirements, to be your contractor, that they are required to have their subcontractors go through the same thing, and that you have the right for refusal. You can build that into the contract you have. Again, talk to your lawyer, but we can give you some examples. And just as a final note in my last 2 minutes, this is a famous picture of the Breakers boys in Pittston, PA, by the great photographer Lewis Hines. This is 120 years old, right? 130 years old. It's not that long ago. And every time we have an industrial revolution, every time we sink a lot of money into a new problem, we figure out how to best use that money to do the right thing for the environment, for other things. And then the last thing we ever consider are the people that we ask to do the work, right? The LEED building certification has no rules about building buildings. So no matter, you could build a building with kids and still get LEED certification because it doesn't consider that. And in fact, talking to Jessica Lumen from Wage and Hour, there's a huge growing rise of child labor in America. So a problem we thought was solved a long time ago is there. And so we have an opportunity to take our time to develop good policies to make sure that this very important restoration work is also done in a way that empowers and creates good, well-paying, family-sustaining jobs. And with that, here's my contact information. I don't charge anybody money. You can ask Mount Watershed. I'm helping them with some stuff right now. I will come out. I will drive. I love Pennsylvania. I'll drive anywhere. We'll do it over Zoom, whatever works for you. I'm a resource that's free of charge. I have a very good endowment to help pay me and my staff. So please, take advantage. I will answer any questions.
Okay, before we take the question, I just want to remind everyone, fill in your survey. Make sure you turn it in. And Bobby said we still need 12 people for cornhole. And do you have any questions for James?
Yes, if you have a project where you're employing the contractor, it's mostly a development project, so it's mostly engineers and scientists, so that's not prevailing wage, but there's a provision from AMR, their contract, that if there's anything like borehole drilling, that would pay prevailing wage. We're pretty sure that's going to happen, but now is the contractor that we hired, is it them that have to make sure that the subcontractor doing the borehole, is it them that do all the tracking, or do we have to get that ourselves?
It eventually needs to come back to you. Technically, under the law, the way it works is that the contractor is responsible for all of the subcontractors knowing that prevailing wages on the job. They have to tell the subcontractors, and collecting their certified payrolls and getting them back to you. A lot of subcontractors will send them directly to you, but it is technically the general contractor. Now, there's no such thing as general contractor liability in the state of Pennsylvania, so there's no financial penalties for that general contractor if that doesn't happen. Perhaps a giant loophole that we should have fixed 40 years ago. But yes, they should be the ones informing them. I would just remind that general contractor, hey, if you have to hire anybody for the boring, remember it's covered by prevailing wage, and we need to see the certified payrolls. They need to get all the way back to us. You're required to hold on to those certified payrolls.
And probably do whatever reporting that's specific to your grant.
Yeah, your grant will probably have some you need to submit the copies in the end, or quarterly or whatever. Yeah.
I have a question. Slide number 3. You were talking about the difference between prevailing wage and Davis Bacon. Keep going. That is it and or? Each of those bullet points.
And.
And done under contract,
Yeah.
and paid in whole or part.
Okay. Yeah, there is a Pennsylvania Supreme Court case called Penn National 1, because there is a Penn National 2. Penn National 1 set the exact test, these legal tests, and this is where this comes from.
One quick question. Go ahead.
When did start paying drillers as part of investigation prevailing wage. I just thought that was not part of the prevailing wage because it was part of an investigation, not part of construction.
Correct. Under
You don't let do prevailing wage because they're not set up.
correct. Under standard practice, it isn't, except that BAMR can require it.
It's required in our contract.
Yeah, the government can add prevailing wage to whatever they want.
They can do whatever they want. They're like Congress.
They're writing the rules. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's essentially a decision that BAMR made.
Yeah, we were just told, thou shalt, you know, and you sign here, we will do.
Anything else I've ever done, like, as part of the investigation portion that's not covered under PA.
Yeah, normally that's not considered construction. The thing with the
We were told it's construction specifically in the verbiage in our grant.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
It becomes a giant headache to try to get drilling companies that never, ever, ever deal with.
well, I mean, I'll tell you that, like, I know of a, you know, they may not be in the abandoned mine land world because frankly there wasn't that much money in it in the past. But I know construction, like large drilling firms that can do test bore drills and whatnot that do prevailing wage. So like on a certain level, the ones that have never done prevailing wage, if they want to remain competitive and be able to work on these things, they're gonna have to learn it. And honestly, for the contractors, it's not hard. They get a rate, they pay their worker that rate, they record it on a certified payroll, they submit it. Contractors do like to say it's like one of the most impossible things to follow that they've ever done. And meanwhile, the maintenance schedule on that drill is way more complicated than paying prevailing wage.
All right, we don't have any more time. We got a break for now, but you can always get in touch with James.
I'm here all day. I'm going to throw corn. I'm going to be one of those 11 that are needed.
Thank you, James.
I just have a quick question on that side too.
Sure.
Maintenance. What's that? Like, or accept maintenance? What's that?
Yeah, maintenance is this